Wow, we get a lot of people here today. It's the cluttered one. I take that that means yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
Hang on just a second here. And here. The first thing I'm going to show you is that the preferred browser for anything Validix is Google Chrome. And the reason I say that is if you log in with Internet Explorer into Validix, you will not even see your zone maps. It just doesn't work well. And Mozilla Firefox just doesn't work as well with Validix either in most cases. So I always start this by showing that, and then I'm going to also show you a few things about Google Chrome. Number one, like any browser, it builds up cache, and cache can cause some issues related to within Validix, especially with the GIS market definition tool, QA alerts when you're balancing a market group, and a few other things that it can cause a problem. So if you run into a problem, just clear your browser history. And the way to do that is click on the wrench up here, click on history, and then you can just clear your browsing history, and it'll come up with this little drop down or whatever you want to call it. I always check these four. Some people don't want to clear everything, like cookies and everything, so as long as you've got to empty the cache and clear the browsing history check, you should be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is if you've got a lot of zones that you're working on and a lot of MLS downloads, sometimes it can get a little crazy keeping track of where you're downloading them to. So a real nice feature within Google Chrome, click on the wrench again, click on settings, come down here to the bottom and show advanced settings. Click on the blue hyperlink, and then you see the little downloads here. Check the box and click change. I always tell it to direct me to the desktop because I've got a lot of folders, as you probably saw when I first came on. One other thing I want to point out is there's a chat box here, and in some cases we may need to mute you simply because we're getting feedback. So in fact, I'm going to probably mute everyone except myself right now because I am getting some feedback. But if you have a question, type it in the chat box as we're going, and I'll look over there occasionally and answer questions. Okay, so I have muted everyone but myself, and now we shouldn't be getting feedback. So I'm going to go get out of here, and we're going to log into Validix, and we're going to download a file. Hang on just a second here. Okay, so I'm logging in. I'm still writing down some names here, so. Okay, so when you log in, the first thing you're going to see is is your zones. And I'll just talk a little bit about how things have changed a little bit in here before we get into actually doing the REDE tool. You've got the black tabs up here at the top. You've got your map tab, which we're looking at. You've got an orders tab. You can go in and look at orders as they come across. You can place an order here. I'm not going to walk through that today. That's part of another class. You've got your market groups where you can go in and balance and combine things like that. You've got your properties tab. You can go do an address search. You can go into property details. And you've got your MLS import, which is basically pretty new and has been what most people have been having difficulty with. There's a class Vlytics 2, which goes into MLS import and goes into defining market groups with the GIS tool. We're going to go over here and click on the Import Export tab, and we're going to go ahead and download a file. So in this case, I'll just download Arizona 104. So I click on the Export button. This is one of the things that has changed in the last 6 or 8 months, is that it's now going to download in zipped format, and we'll have to unzip it. So when we get to that point, you'll see. Okay, so again, I set it up so it asked me where I want to put it. So I'm going to put it in my zone folder for 104. We'll just replace it. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into my zone folder and get that ready so that I can put it into the REDE tool. And if I can remember where I put it. So I'm opening my zone folders. And so I'm going to unzip it. So if you have Windows 7, you've already got it built in. If you have XP or Vista, then you need to get a third-party program. And one of the free ones that you can get on the internet is 7-Zip, and it's 7-Zip, and it works great. I'm using XP. So I'm going to just extract files here, and I'm going to auto rename because I've got one that I've already built. So it unzipped it. Now, if you have a zone that has more than 20,000 properties, when you unzip your file, you may see 2 XML files or more. There is a zone in Nevada, down in Henderson, that when you unzip it, it unzips into 6 different XML files, because there's 110,000 properties in that zone. So we're going to go ahead and open the REDE tool now. I'm going to close this, and I'm now teaching, of course, REDE 6.2. That's the new version, and it is different than the old version in that it doesn't have the same 3 filters that you were if you'd seen it before. Move this. So I'm going to browse and load. So I'm going to go into a zone folder. And I'm going to put this one in. So I'm just selected the zone file, and it's loading up into the REDE tool. And it can take a little time to load up in it, depending on the size of the file. Now, if you do have multiple XML files, you have to work them individually for that zone and upload them individually, because that's we can't combine them and zip them and send them back up. That just doesn't work that way. So I've got my zone loaded in here. Some important things to look at. My filtered rows, that should be either 20,000 if it's got multiple files, or in this case it's 18,052 properties. That's something important to keep an eye on as we go through and work in here. This is our filter, and we can select multiple filters. The real nice thing is whatever we select, the only thing that comes in that gets presented here is data related to that. So as we kind of put the magnifying glass and go down layers, you'll see that happen. This side is our editing side. For our primary file, this is where we'll do our editing. This is for if you bring in a third-party data file, let's say a tax assessor record by zip code or something like that, that you're going to match on. That's where you would use these filters. We're not going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about this area over here and our templates. So the first thing I do when I walk into a zone that hasn't been scored is I'm going to go look at my type of property. Okay, once I filtered on type, you can see most of my this zone has gotten into a correct property type, but I've got these 883 that I've got to work on. The two areas I'm going to work in first are type and then style. So I'm now sorting on that type of property, and I'm only looking at the 883 that don't have a type. And I'm going to put the second filter on Universal Land Use Code just to check something. Okay, I'm going to pull that filter off because there is no Universal Land Use Code for these 883. So I'm going to clear the filter, go back into type, select these 883, and I'm now going to start to look at things. How can I put these into a correct bucket? So if I know my zoning codes for this county, then I can put these into a correct property type. And I happen to know that CR1 in Pima County is a single family. So I'm going to go select the CR1s, and I'm going to go ahead and edit these into our single family detached. So I come over here and go on the type. When we go down and find the R single family detached, we apply the editing. It asks us, do we really want to do this? Yes, we do. Now this is another change that has happened with the new version of the tool. Any of you that were familiar with version 5.4,
you might go downstairs to see if there's any.
It would have asked you where do you want to save it to on your desktop. That no longer exists in here, and the reason for that is the old tool only did a schema validation check on input, didn't do it on output. This one does it on both input and output. So we don't have that feature anymore. We just simply browse when we click browse to save, when we're going to save the zone file to our desktop to either work on another day or to upload the Validix. That's when we'll run that schema validation check and save the file down. So now if I go back in here and click type, notice we've gone down to 671 that don't have a type of property. And C2 is another single family. So we're going to go find our zoning, find CR2. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to march through all of these, and we're going to put them into a type. Now, realized we started with 882 or 3 out of 18,000 that didn't have a type. What we may want to do here is put these into a different category just so we know we have to research them further. Some of the ADOs I've worked with like to put it in R unique. If they know their residential properties, they can then identify them real quickly. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to actually back out of here, and I'm going to go ahead and put these into R unique down here. So that tells me I've got to research these further, and they jump right out at me. But it doesn't prevent me from uploading this file into Validix. Oops, I just made a big mistake here. I better start over. That's the wonderful thing about this. I just put everything into R unique. So I'll back out of that. And since I hadn't saved it down...
Oh, Glenn, I think there was a single step
yes.
undo in the new version of the tool. I don't know if you can still try that if it would undo that.
I already reloaded the file in. I'm just going to change these all to... I'm just looking at the 883. And I'm going to change the type on these to R unique. So I'm going to clear all filters. I'm going to go back into type. And as you see, I have no blanks because we can't have blanks for style or type. So we've now fixed that. Let's go over to style. Oh, that's right. Style's up here. And we've got 1126 plus these 2777 that are undefined that we have to figure out. So again, we're probably less than 10% of our properties don't have a style code. So I'm going to put them into something that jumps out at me that I have to research further. So now we're going to change style. And I just put them in a unique again. Now you can do this any way you want to for your area, and I would imagine that the ADOs would provide some backup on that. But the goal is to get this thing scrubbed so that we can start to work on it, and then define market groups, upload MLS, and make them modified live. So I now have everything in some type of bucket, so I can upload this. Now we're going to start rough scoring this zone. So I'm going to go start with my first opinion of influence. This is basement comment, and as you can see, we don't have basements, or there's nothing in there. And this is southern Arizona, so there are very few basements. So we can research them further later on. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put a basement rating, give it a 1. And the reason I do basement rating first is if I change the basement comment, these would all disappear. Clear. And now we'll change the basement comment to no basement. So next one we're going to go to is condition comment. Some of these have been scored. So I'm going to take everything that has no comment or is average, and I'm going to change the rating to 5. And then when we come back and gold star, select our comps as we're bringing things modified live, that's when we can go in and actually look at public record, look at MLS. So I'm going to change those. So my condition rating on those has changed. Now I'm going to go change my condition comment because I don't like AVE as average. Again, this is what we're just rough scoring these. So we'll take the excellent. I'll leave those alone. They've got ratings in there already. Yep. So now we're done with condition. Extras I'm going to come back and work later because that's a little more difficult to work in. So I'm going to go to location comment. And we have no comment in here. So we're gonna put this. We're gonna change the comment on these to just, for right now, residential, because this is pretty much a residential zone. Very little commercial. Okay. And then we'll change the rating on. What did I just do? That should have been location. We'll come back there. So I'm going to change the rating to a 5. And I have to go back to condition comment because I changed everything. So for right now, I'm just going to change it to average. So we've done location. Now parking comments are a little more interesting. We have one of the nice features with the new version of this tool is that we can use the shift function to select a range of properties. We can also use control. So it's a lot quicker using this version of the REDE tool to score parking than it was with the old tool. So let's take an example here. I'm going to select these first two, and we're going to call that parking comment. We're going to change to 6+. Actually, that one could have gone in there too. So now I'm going to select the ones that would fit into 2-car. So I held the shift down while I did that, and it just selected all of them. So I can select everything that fits 3-car. One other thing that I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to go through all of these today because we only have about an hour, but what Dan has told me in his area is for these that have no type unknown, and it's 13,195. This zone is predominantly 2-car, so for right now, we'll just put a comment in so we can give it a rating of 2-car. The ones that are type unknown or none will change to street parking. So we'll walk through and do all that. But for today's demonstration, we're not going to go there. We'll come back to site size rating because I like using the template for that. We're going to go to view comment. We're going to rough score these as typical. And then we'll just give these a rating of 5. Again, this is rough scoring. Now we're going to go into I'm going to show you the templates. So what the first thing I want to do before I go into the templates is clear the filter. I want to make sure I'm looking at all the filtered rows. Now if you have already created market groups and you want to do your site size rating at a market group level versus a zone level, you can just load in the zone. Or if you want to do it at a type of property level, like single family residential, you can apply the filter there. For this, we're just going to go ahead and do the entire zone. So I'm going to click on Define Template. It always opens up into the site size template. Now, in the gray is a recommendation based on an algorithm built into this zone, into the REDE tool. It's not necessarily correct. What you're going to try to do is get somewhat of a bell-shaped curve here. You're always going to have the commercial and large properties. I really don't worry about the bell shape on that so much. But everything in the gray, this is what the histogram's showing. In the white is you can edit these. So let's just, for a demonstration, let's do change these.
While Glen's doing, while Glen's doing that, the only thing I might add, you can see he's working on all 18,000 properties. If you wanted to filter it out by type to just work on single families, then you wouldn't have as many of the outliers up there in terms of the big property sizes or the small property sizes. You'd get rid of the condos and the commercial properties, for example.
Right. And that is one reason that I mentioned that we could do it by type. So I'm going to click refresh here, and as you can see, it's changed somewhat. Predominantly, the majority of the properties are in the 5. So for today, I'm just going to say, okay, that's fine. So if I'm happy with it after I refresh, I click assign rating. This is the one that says no output file has been provided. That's okay. We'll just tell it no. Now let's say I like this template and I wanted to use it in other zones around it. If I have homogeneous zones around each other, specifically if you're in cities, this probably makes sense. So you can save this template. Just click Save As, and you can label it whatever you want to. I'm going to call it Suburban Site Size Template. So I just click Save. It already exists. That's why it came back and asked that. So now I have rated site size for all of the properties within the market group. I'm going to show you 3 other templates that you can use in here. For if you're on the East Coast where you have older properties, I mean, like this was designed in Massachusetts, where they have homes built in the 1600s. Where I'm at in northern Nevada, I think the oldest home is probably 1840. So using this template didn't work real well for us, but you can band it by age, year built, and put in a remaining economic life condition and comment. So you could go do that. As you can see in this area, there's the oldest home, I think, is 1810. This is Tucson, Arizona, is where this zone is at. So you can see the majority of the properties are not that old. Up here, one of the things I always do is I go in and for any year builts that I find that are 0, I go in and change those to 1. Therefore, they kind of jump out again. It could be vacant land, but I would do that before this. So you could go in and you could, let's say, take a range of 2005 to 2010 and give that a remaining economic life condition. You could use this tool for that, and it probably works real well on east of the Rockies. Maybe not so well west of the Rockies. Same thing with parking, but again, you have to go put everything into buckets. So to me, I would rather just do this in the parking comment tool. But you could go in here and you could give, you could rate a certain type of parking, give it a score, and put a comment in. Same thing with basement. Here we don't have any basements, but you could do that as far as banding it by size range of basements, something along that lines. These other 3, Extra, View, and Marketplace or Market Name, they don't exist yet. They were placeholders, and I don't think they'll ever get built within a standalone REDE tool. The ultimate goal is to build the REDE tool into Analytics. So I'm kind of done using the templates.
The only other thing I might say there, Glenn,
now, yep,
is if you do want to use it for the second and third and fourth tab, you'll have to condense your comments down to 10, so it only gives you 10 choices. So if you can do that, then you can use the tool on those text deals as opposed to number ranges to score it, but you've got to condense it down to 10 comments or less.
That's correct. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is, let's say I walked into a zone and I built that site size template, the suburban site size. If I was in another zone and I wanted to apply this, all I do is click Apply Template, and it says, do I want to do this? Yes. This is one of the reasons I'm not a real fan of these templates. You don't know, other than looking in the zone that you originally did this in, you don't know what that template is. Now, if you are in a real urban area where everything is cookie cutter, Los Angeles, pick a city, maybe it makes sense to use them. But for me, most of the areas that we work in here are not that urban. They're pretty well lots of distance between places. So now let's say we're ready to save this file to our desktop and then upload it into Validics. I'm going to clear all filters. I want to make sure, again, I'm looking at the entire zone property. So 18,052. That's a safe one. So I click Browse to save, and then I go over here and find my zone folder. And this was 104. I'm going to put today's date in here, and maybe a comment of scrubbed, if I can remember what the date is. So I'm saving that to my desktop. Now I could come back in late, if I was going to work on it later today or tomorrow, I could do that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use the other file that was in there that you saw said scrubbed. I'm going to go ahead and log into the UAT server and upload that. So one thing I always do when once I've browsed and saved that to my desktop, I go back into the zone folder, and I want to make sure that I have that file. I do, right here, before I close out the REDE tool, because the last thing you want to do is do a couple hours worth of work, and then guess what? I forgot to save it correctly, and now I got to start all over again. So that's just a double check I always do. But I can now close this safely because I've verified that I have that file. So the next step would be to go ahead and, if I'm ready to upload this to Validics, I'd simply right-click on it and send to. Of course, if you've got Windows 7, it'll do this for you. And I just compress the file. So there it is right here that it just did. I'm going to go ahead and use this file because I know it's scrubbed, and we're going to go into actually this one, and we're going to go log into Validics and show you how to upload this file now. So again, I would that's production Validics. I'm going to actually go into UAT because I don't want to upload this into our production. You are all welcome to work in this server environment too, the UAT. This is where we do a lot of once the Zayo developers are working on, like right now they're trying to make address matching better. This is where we go into test, some of us on the tech committee. And it's also a good place to go into the first, let's say you're not sure you're proficient enough on the GIS tool, you can always go in here and mess with stuff and it won't affect production. This usually gets mirrored to production about once a week over the weekend. It never goes the other direction though. Never from UAT to production. So again, I'm going to log in, and this time I'm going to click on Import Export. And we're going to go to Import. So now we have the ability, you can either drag the file over here that you want to use, or you can click Add File. and I want to find that one that was scrubbed. So I just load that in here. Now, let's say you have multiple files for the same zone. You can zip them and load them in here. You can put multiple zones in here and upload multiple files, I guess is a better way of saying that, not zones. Let's say I put the wrong one in here. I realized and I want to get rid of it. I can click on the stop sign over here and it'll go away. But I'm going to go ahead and start the upload process. Okay, it's uploaded the file. It's now in queue. This is where some people get confused. If there are 50 or 60 people working, uploading files, it may take a while, hours, for your file to get integrated. And what I tell people to do is go ahead and upload them at the end of the workday, and don't even worry about them until the next day. And then you should see that they have queued. So we're going to go click on status. And it's not even in the queue yet. So but what you want to see once this file has integrated is exactly this. Import complete, the date, the total rows processed, total failed, and the time. This time is the amount of time when it hit. It's now the number 1 in queue, and it's in integration. That's how long it took to go to integrate. This is what you don't want to see, schema validation failure. But all of these, as you can see, are fine. These were self-induced, by the way. We were testing. So I'm going to just log out because I'll check it later to see if it integrated. So I'm going to open it up for questions now. I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you have a question, go ahead and ask it, because that pretty much covers. I know I'd see Jim Anderson asked a question in the chat log. If you want the new version, just send an email to support@zonedatasystems.com, and I will get that sent to you. It no longer requires licenses for the machine, the new version, but there are with the software. I'm also sending a Word doc, and I ask you to read that first, because what we need to do is before we open or unzip the file, we need to rename it. This is how we get on the exe file issue. So we're no longer using Dropbox to get that out to people. Okay. Well, Harvey, I'll work with you on that. Let's see. Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions, I'll go ahead and close this out. And I thank you for attending.
The organizer